The Power Moms Network, empowering moms to lift the world.
Welcome. I'm Riley Karsh.
I'm Tova Kopan.
We are thrilled to bring you the We Go Boldly podcast.
Let's talk big burning questions, life changes, and maybe a bit of personal business.
Let's be bold and brave together. Are you ready?
I am. Here comes the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to We Go Boldly, the podcast where we celebrate women stepping into their power and living their most authentic lives. We are also thrilled to be a part of the Power Moms Network. At Power Moms Network, we are empowering moms and creating a community of mothers mentoring other moms to greatness. It is a very cool community. We would love to have you join us. You can find out more information on our show notes and online. So sign up whenever you can. In addition to all of that good information, we also want to remind everyone we have our weekly women's circle. We meet every week. We talk about all kinds of stuff from, like your kids to your spouses to, fascism. We cover it all. We would love to have you join us. You could sign up and get more information about the circle on our website at goboldlyinitiative.com/weekly circle. So all of that is out of the way. Back to our regularly scheduled topic. We are in season 12. As you all know, we are talking about self-authorship. And our guest today doesn't know this, but I have been hearing about him for quite a long time. And I am super excited for this conversation. And I think it's going to be a really, really interesting one for all of you to get to hear about. Before we dive into all of that, I am, of course, going to say hello to Tova, get her talking and here and on the show. And I'm not going to ask how she's doing because I'm in a spiral of doom. But I am going to say hello, Tova. It's sunny outside and it's Wednesday.
It's sunny outside. It's Wednesday. You've now made me sound like a stalker just because I like books. But
I
whatever.
like books too. Whatever. We're both stalkers. It's fine.
It's fine. Listen, I already live in an adorable small town, but I think it was 2 years ago this past July, maybe three. Time is weird. It became like 1,000 times better because we got a bookstore thanks to the person that we're interviewing today. So,
yeah, and not just any bookstore, an independent bookstore, which we
an
love.
independent bookstore. And not just anyone, but one that doesn't cause me stress because it's cluttered. It's so nice. Listen, sometimes there's great independent bookstores where they can be stressful.
Yeah, no, I hear you. It's like going thrift store shopping sometimes where you're just like, I can't do it.
There's a reason I don't go thrift store shopping unless I'm with somebody else who says, here, try this on. Because otherwise I'm like, oh my God, what do I do? What do I do? Anyway, here we are. I appreciate you not asking me how I am because it's a confusing question these days. I promise we're going to get introductions, but I found a post today we're recording this on April 9th, I think. Is that what today's date is?
Yep.
2020. And it was like, all right, guys, we can do this. It is hard because it feels hard. I know it seems scary, just one step at a time. And I was like, okay. And then it was like, feed your kids cereal for breakfast if you have to. And I was like, so we'll just follow the same advice now. It's all the same.
I had to bust out the Magical Mom unicorn mug today because I was like, I need something positive.
Nice. Ironically, Riley and I met at mostly got to know each other during a best decade ever group, 2020.
2020.
Here we
It's
are.
really working out.
Anyway, we are so excited to have our guest today. I am so excited. Riley's excited. I apparently am a stalker of bookstores. Our guest today is Josh Jacobs. He is the owner of the Collective Bookstore, which is an independent bookstore in Verona, New Jersey, dedicated to books, culture, and community. He oversees the daily operations, curates the store's selection, and leads its nonfiction book club, #NFFW, Nonfiction for Work. Prior to launching the bookstore, Josh spent over a decade at Universal Music Group, holding various roles across the music industry. He later served as head of operations at How To Media, a venture-backed food tech startup, and is the founder of Hearth Realty Group, a leading independent real estate brokerage. He also works selectively as a business development consultant. So, quite a story. We're excited to have you here. Welcome, Josh. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really great. It's really nice to be here and to be talking to you both.
Yeah, we're thrilled to have you. And I didn't mean to make Tova sound like a stalker. We're just like love books and talk about books all the time. So of course you naturally come up in those conversations. I find your bio fascinating. It's one of the shortest we've gotten, but one of the most like unique in the things that you've done in your lifetime and the way that you've sort of gone on a nonlinear path. I would love to just sort of kick off the conversation if you would talk to us a little bit about your path and like how you went from, sort of working in the music industry to, I mean, it's all sort of artistic, right? But working in the music industry and then moving forward and through all of the things you have done, are doing, and will continue to do along the way.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't describe Tova stalking at all. She's a loyal customer to the
Excellent.
store, and I
Yes.
think one of possibly two people that came in the store before we officially opened. Tova, I think you were either special ordering something or getting gift cards for
I
teachers.
got gift cards for
Gift cards for
teachers. Yeah.
teachers, yes. And so we still had paper on the windows. But it was obviously the interest that we had early on was an inspiration to kind of how we operate the store now. It is to what it is today because of our early customers and customers that still discover us. But going to kind of how I got here, I think it starts a little bit. I'm going to say it starts in college. And I never really made a connection until this point in my life with, a college major. And my major was cultural anthropology, which is one of those majors that, unless you kind of get into teaching or research, there aren't too many options. But I remember when people would ask me, why are you majoring in culture? Like, what are you doing? And I was just like, I love the classes. Sitting in these classes, it's like story time for adults. And you sit an hour and a half with some professor who's traveled throughout the world, and you get to learn about other people and other cultures, from tribes in South America to the cultural history of the New York Police Department. There's always something fascinating to learn, and through that, I was really focused on one aspect of it, which is a visual ethnography, which is documentary filmmaking without taking this position. And I worked out this kind of custom minor where I got a grant to make a documentary film, and worked with certain businesses that I would tell their story. There's a specific angle of the documentary film, but I was really fascinated in documentary and people's stories, and that's what got me into. I was actually working through college at MTV in their news and documentary department when they actually, I don't know what it is today, but it's very different back then. So
Yeah.
there was music, then there was MTV. They had like, a day in the life, behind the scenes, that type of work. So I was kind of working on that, the Tupac documentary, and I learned production on a professional level. And I got really excited working in that business. But kind of TV and visual media wasn't really where I wanted to be. But I love the music component. Always loved music, always played music, just personally. And I was like, all right, let's try a different vertical here. Let's go into the music business. And so I tried to get like internships, and they're extremely hard to get. And you make some adjustments to your resume to make them the way they should look. And then all of a sudden you get an internship. So I started
Yeah.
working in this hybrid, which was music videos. So I worked for a department called, it was at the time it was called Urban Video Production and Promotion. And so we would help produce and promote music videos for Universal Music Group, Motown Records, Universal Republic, like that division within the East Coast Universal label group. I learned a lot. I worked really, really hard, long days. You try to make an impact and try to take advantage of every opportunity. And a year later, when I graduated, my former boss called me and offered me an assistant position. And of course, I interviewed and I took it. And she taught me so many things that I still carry to today. That it was such a great, few years that I worked for her. Through there, I ended up working for the CFO for a little while, just because an opportunity came up, and I thought it'd be a great way. He oversaw about a third of the company, from talent development and A&R to marketing and even art direction. So I thought it would be a great chance to learn things that I wasn't exposed to before in one department. So I did that, landed some other, marketing and sales roles for the remainder of my time there, and I ended up leaving. After 10 years, it was pretty exhausting. Doing a lot of traveling, a lot of shows, 4 or 5 nights a week going out, and I was kind of ready to move on to another stage, but kind of, because there was a Kickstarter campaign from the former CFO of Universal Music Group, and I was not working at the time. Threw him $50 for some level of sponsorship. He's like, "Ah, what are you doing? I'm starting this new company. Why don't you come help me?" So I ended up working for him and helping launch a cooking magazine called Pana. We really developed the technology and the application that powered that program, and the consumer-facing product was shooting uh, well-known chefs in their home kitchens, and step-by-step instructions that you could follow along at home. So I worked there for 3 years. They went to kind of like an A&E network partnership. So I decided to leave, and that's where my entrepreneurial ventures began. And just wanted to work for myself. I'd done a corporate thing, I'd done a startup thing, and I knew I kind of really wanted to be responsible for what I was producing and for my own business. And uh, that's where I launched independent real estate. Well, I started getting into real estate and then quickly launched an independent real estate brokerage, which still operates today. And um, we can talk about that later, but it's just a very different. I was really drawn to the business part of it, into running a business, into marketing. When you are a business owner, everything falls on you: marketing, advertising, finance, budget, everything. And I
Sure
wanted to
does.
learn everything about one thing, and that's what I chose. And uh, to the bookstore, well, it's kind of tied in. So, the real estate brokerage, we had office space in Verona where the bookstore is now. And after COVID, the team was already remote. We were already operating with cloud-based technology, and the business had changed where people don't walk into offices anymore. So I had this great, you know, ground level retail next to a coffee shop across from the park, and I was the only one there ever. And I was working on other things and, thinking about the future of the company, but I would just sit there, and I was like, oh my God, we got this great office space and nobody's using it. Like, do we actually need it? I think it was a lot of a question that a lot of businesses had, a few years into COVID, when um, a temporary adjustment turned out to be something a little bit more permanent. And I realized we didn't need the office space anymore the same way. We could uh, push kind of the way the company operated into like a different platform. And we were just thinking and like thinking, what could we do with the space? Like, I offered it to the cafe. I'm like, do you want to expand into the space? She's like, no, Marie, who owns Dolce Marie, she's like, I like what I have. I like it small. I was renting it out for like little events and photo shoots. And, my wife and we took a trip up to visit some friends, actually two people that worked for me at Universal Music Group who ended up getting married. So we visited them up in Saratoga. And we were in a really great bookstore there called Northshire Booksellers Bookstore, and they have one in Vermont and one in Saratoga. And we're just walking around, and we always love to visit bookstores when we travel. But the way that bookstore was set up really connected with us. And we were just standing in the front of the store, and we're like, we just need this. It was books, thoughtfully curated. With what I mean by that is just the local kind of the you could tell that the customers were represented in the store, local authors and events and history, but also merchandised really nicely with gifts and other sidelines that book people like. And so that was one of the biggest inspirations. So we talked the whole car ride home, and of course while we were there, and I was like, all right, well, let's do that, and started researching and yeah, a lot of researching. I had no idea. I operated other businesses before, but even retail was kind of new for me. Besides working at a clothing store in college, I had no retail experience, but I wanted to learn it, and it was really exciting to learn a new type of business. And it was going to be something that we operated Thursday through Sunday, kind of a part-time bookstore. And once we announced it and we got so much support from the community and amazing customers like Tova, we're like, wait a second, this is a real thing. We need to adjust the way we are going to operate. And we did. And so we ended up hiring, 4 or 5 primary booksellers. I kind of switched rather than being in the store, I switched to back end, buying and managing role. And it has evolved since, and it has been really a great thing. And, so when we talk about stories and storytelling, going all the way back to college and my experience with the idea of a story and the importance of story in culture and community to working in 1,000 square feet filled with 12,000 stories. It kind of, for me, it's a nice circle and one that I did not expect.
I know you have questions, Tova, but I have one. I'm jumping the line. Um, I want to highlight a couple of things that I heard and you sort of telling your story, and that is like you're clearly motivated by curiosity, right? And interest in the world around you. Where does that stem from? Is that like just an innate part of your temperament? Is that something your family instilled in you? Kind of, let's take the Wayback Machine and go even beyond like when you were in college, when you were your family systems and your dynamics and how you kind of grew up through life. Was curiosity something that was encouraged? Sort of how did you get to that place? Because I think some people are afraid of that. And I would love for people to hear kind of you talk about why it's so important in your life and how that evolved.
As you're very insightful from a very short bio because I have an answer for that. But I think that the word curiosity is really important, and that's how I approach book selling. I think that unlike a lot of other booksellers or bookstore owners that have been doing this for 20 or 30 years or grew up in bookstores themselves, I don't have that experience. I do have experience growing up among a family that really appreciates books and stories and storytelling. Um, but, I don't have that experience. I had to learn it, in the past like 3 or 4 years as we were getting the bookstore launched. But that's how I approach curiosity. I approach it like a customer, just walking every day. I open up the catalog of new books coming out. I approach it with curiosity. What would our customers like? What would the children love to see in the store? And I think that's one unique value proposition that our store has. It's not it's not like decades worth of one way of thinking or one appreciation of a certain genre. It's curiosity about everything. And I think it does go back to really early ages. I mean, I remember, my grandmother cared for me and like the constant nighttime story time was, tell me a real story. In fact, I have a plaque on a bench at Verona Park that says, tell me a story, and that is a tribute to her. And she would tell me stories, but I didn't want to hear, you know, the nice stories. She was raised in Romania in a really difficult time. And, I would want to hear these like real stories of waiting in line for bread and starching, my grandfather's shirts outside in a bucket. And, those are stuff that interested me. And the more real, the more I would be interested in. And, that's so I think it really stems from just an early curiosity in my family and their upbringing and how they, their story to coming here and building a life here.
I also want to highlight something, and then we're going to take a quick break and I'll have a question. But one thing I just want to highlight for everyone who's listening, because so you're only our third gentleman guest. We're trying to do better about expanding our guest population. But one thing that in making broad generalizations here, that men tend to do better than women. And in my brief moment as a recruiter, this like was so amplified to me. I heard you say like you wanted to go in the music industry. So you just went and kind of like tweaked your resume a little bit. You clearly had stuff on your resume that could reflect, like it wasn't, you didn't lie, but you just like tweaked and you like highlighted things. You just like or maybe you did a little, who knows? But you like bumped things up, right? And women are so good at taking themselves out of contention, of jobs, of businesses, of opportunities, because just like I talked to my seventh grader and he says, why don't the girls raise their hand? They just never raise their hand. I'm like, because you fools are just constantly raising your hand all the time with the wrong answers. And I said, they don't think that they can raise their hand until they're right. And I just want to say, like, you can go for a job that maybe you're not completely qualified for, and that's okay. And do it. Like, go for jobs you're not qualified for. Like, because there's a bunch of other people, a whole gender of people that are out there going, well, I mean, I would call people and they would say, I would call a woman and she'd say, well, yeah, it's a bioscience focused law job. I did major in biology in college, but I haven't worked on that in like 4 years. And I'd call a guy lawyer and he'd be like, I took a bio course in high school. And you're like, what is happening? So I just want to highlight that, like, I like listening to your story because you were led by curiosity, but you also had this like permission to say, like, I'm just going to go for it. So with that, we're going to take a quick break. And when I come back, I promise I have a question.
Well, hey there, dream chaser. Are you ready to make the next 12 months of your life unforgettable? Introducing the Year of You, a groundbreaking new goal system group that's about to redefine the way we approach personal growth. Join us with a community of like-minded individuals committed to unlocking their full potential. With expert guidance, personalized strategies, kind-hearted accountability, and a supportive network, the Year of You is more than just a goal-setting group. It's a whole movement. Don't just dream about it, achieve it. Click in the link in our show notes, or go ahead and visit us at goboldlyinitiative.com/year of you to learn more today. Let's embark on a transformative journey together towards becoming the best versions we can be. The Year of You, where your goals become reality.
All right, so welcome back. So my question is, you have taken all these paths, and um, I imagine over time, though, uh, you haven't landed in jobs that have all been perfect fits, and I would imagine being a bookseller in this world right now, while I'm sure very rewarding, is also very difficult and then trying, and you can feel stuck and frustrated when you have that experience, whether it's in the bookstore or whether if you want to reflect on times in the past where you've kind of hit a wall. Like, what do you do, or what do you sort of call on? Maybe it's the stories that your grandmother told you, to help yourself get unstuck and figure out what your next steps are.
I get stuck a lot, and I'm better at recognizing when I'm stuck or when I'm going to get stuck now than I was. I have certainly made career choices that, I should have thought a little bit more about. People that I've chosen to work for, and what kind of working environment that I would be in. But I'm better now at thinking about those things in advance. And what keeps me in that open minded kind of thought process is reading every day. I start my day every single day with just reading. If I can't read for a long time, it'll be just 5 minutes. Um, there's something, it's beyond the content. Reading has these as like a property. It kind of does something to your brain. And I think when you're exposed to other ideas, other challenges, inspiration, um, just other things, it just sets you up for the rest of your day to be open to understanding, to empathy, to all these other different things. And so the most, what's different now than other mistakes I've made in the past has been that commitment to just starting my day with that openness and with that learning mindset of just recognizing, learning, studying, questioning, being curious. And that's like my daily meditation. And most of the time it is nonfiction in the morning. I like to read fiction in the afternoon. But sometimes if it's a really great book, I'll just start my day with 5 minutes, hopefully more, hopefully 20 to 30, well, 2 cups of coffee. But that really sets me up. And I think that it's something that for the past few years has had a tremendous impact on um, home life, work balance, mindset, and so I'm an advocate for it, but you know, don't have time. It's just literally 5 minutes a day has really set me up for more success than anything else.
Yeah, I think that to kind of amplify and clarify that for our listeners, like when we ritualize our mornings in some meaningful way for us. And so for you, it's reading, for others, it might be meditation. And to be clear, we talk about this all the time. Meditation can be anything. So I think reading is meditation. But if you listen to a meditation, whatever you do, when you ritualize your morning and you give yourself the permission to have that time, even if it's 5 minutes, and I'm not going to say just 5 minutes because 5 minutes is important. Even if it's 5 minutes or if it's 10, 15, 20, whatever you have the capacity and the bandwidth for at the time, that can allow you to, as you're saying, Josh, like really set yourself up for a day that is much more palatable. I don't know another word for it right now because it's like things are awful out there, but like if you start your day in this way every day, it sets you up for an easier experience of the day-to-day stuff that comes up in our lives. So I want people to hear that it could come in any format. It doesn't, we talk about certain things, but like whatever works for you and you should keep doing it. um where did that come from for you? Did you sort of just like pull that out of your head and you were like, this is what I'm going to do? Did it like happen organically over time? Kind of how did that happen in your sort of day-to-day experience?
It kind of happened naturally. And as I started to read more for the store, but it really happened, um, being forced to manage when I was running the real estate brokerage, as an entrepreneur, a lot of times you're alone. You don't have, I mean, there are networking groups and there are coaches and there's I didn't have any of that at the time. And so, I really needed to read and learn. And I started to feel better and to get ideas and to get inspiration. But my understanding of the science behind it didn't happen until a couple of years ago. And it was like, putting the kids to bed and enforcing our district's like 10 minutes of reading homework
Yep.
a night for our kids. And, it's a topic of conversation as a bookstore owner. Everyone's like, oh, your kids read all day? I'm like, no. Um, and so this was a few years ago. So I want to say he was like 8 or 9, my oldest at the time. And he's like, all right, why do I have to read tonight? He's like, I read in school. I'm like, but you didn't do your reading homework. And he's like, yeah, but I know how to read. I'm like, yeah, you do. But, and I was kind of focused on these like really superficial elements of um, language development, not in a bad way, but, just these things that we all understand about reading, language development, communication, and learning and being able to speak and just that's all I was like struggling to come up with like, all right, well, why? He's like, well, I can already talk. I can already write. I'm like, yeah, but I differently. He's like, well, I'll learn later. It was just one of these back and forth. It wasn't like a fight, but it was just, I couldn't answer and I didn't like my answer. And so I went back and I have been researching for a separate project, but a lot of the science behind reading and brain development. And I did go back to him a few weeks later after was able to kind of summarize in a way that made sense. And I described it as a workout. Picture 2 points in your brain. And reading is sending those signals from point A to point B to point A to point B. And the faster they go back and forth, the better the workout and the more and the quicker you'll be able to process information. And imagining people, reading about other people and imagining their stories um, develops empathy. And the more that you can understand how other people live and work and you can be a better leader because empathy is an extremely important part of leadership. So I was able to explain that to him. It took some time, but he gets it now. I'm not saying he reads every night, but understanding that piece of it also helped my own understanding and makes me feel good about it. And really helps me commit to that, knowing that it is information, but it's also um, uh, healthy. It's also good for my body and my brain.
I have so many questions. My brain was going like too fast. Now I'm like have to narrow it down because I don't. I'm like,
I was trying not to cut you off, so
no, no, you can go ahead. You can go ahead because I'm still back at like, how do I get my 13-year-old to read? So you
yeah,
can.
yeah. Um, that's always the question, right? How do we get our kids to be more, well, my daughter would read all day, every day if she could. But one thing I find fascinating about reading is, and I think we talked about this in season one, Tova, like way back when we started, is that being able to envision yourself in an environment that isn't one you would ever get to be in, right? Like we don't all have the privilege of traveling. We don't all have the privilege of trying different foods or meeting people from different cultures. At least not to the extent that you can through the eyes of a book, whether it's fiction or nonfiction. And so I find it fascinating when people are like reading is boring. And I'm like, what? You're not reading the right book for you then, because it's like when you read, you go somewhere else and it's amazing. I guess I am getting to a question, I promise. I would love to understand for our listeners, I almost said readers, because we're talking about books so much. For our listeners, you seem comfortable taking risks. We talked about your curiosity, um, and your family a little bit, but I'd like to, and you can say no, but I would like to dive deeper into that because I think that our listeners and people out there don't always connect their early experiences to their current behaviors, right? And so talk to us a little bit more about your experience with your grandmother and her talking to you about an entirely different way of life than what you were experiencing, I'm assuming. And I might be wrong, assuming is a bad thing to do. But in theory, that's a totally different way of life. And can you talk to us about how that sort of shaped your decisions going forward? I realize, we talked about the curiosity aspect, but you've taken risks, you've started businesses, you've tried different things, and a lot of people are really afraid. They're fearful of change. They're fearful of risk or failure, of all those things. And I'm not suggesting that you've never been afraid. I'm sure you have, but you've also done things in spite of or in addition to that fear. So talk to us about kind of your family life and how that got you where you are.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't grow up in the same way, but if you do have a parent or grandparent that grew up a certain way, you certainly bring a lot of that into your upbringing. And I think being very conservative, I think has always been um, instilled in my sister and I as we were growing up. Financially conservative, conserving resources. When you don't have a lot, I think, my mom and my grandmother really um, taught us the importance of saving, of uh, again, just saving and not wasting. And it's I think about it a lot. I think a lot of my decisions as an adult come from that time and wanting to not waste simple things like not waste food. Um, you know, tell the kids not to throw stuff away or not take more than they're going to eat. Like it really sits with me because that's the way I grew up. Like because they didn't have anything or have a lot. Um, they brought that here. And my dad didn't have the same experience. He grew up like middle class, was born here. So I had kind of a little, just kind of two experiences coming together. However, my parents did run a small business as I was growing up. And they ran, from when I was a kid, they ran like a warehouse out of their garage for, it's like athleisure before it was popular, like spandex before,
That's
Lululemon.
amazing. I love it.
They were about 30 years behind the trend today. So they had focused on, bicycle uniforms, exercise. I mean, just picture the fluorescent leotards and stuff. That was all them. And unfortunately, at the time, um, a lot of manufacturing, even by kind of notable US based companies, were going overseas
Mhm.
because the manufacturing processes there were much more efficient and affordable. So, you had a lot of like, American made companies really manufacturing overseas. So they unfortunately had to close. And I remember being there kind of through their business closing. I was in college. I think I was a freshman. My sister was 2 years older at Rutgers. And I would go there. I mean, they were literally like selling factory equipment. And, somebody bought all the remaining fabric, loaded it up to a truck, and never paid them. And it was kind of a very difficult time. Also personally just how that impacted us as a family and like our stability in our house at the time. Um, so uh, that still, I still remember that time period of, heating bills and, not turning the heat on and wearing a hat to sleep because it was, too cold. And we joke about that, today a little bit. But we all went back to school. I was in college. My sister was in college. My mom went to Essex County to get retraining as a paralegal. My dad went to Kane to become to learn for a teaching certificate. He's now a behaviorist. So that had an impact. So I had kind of a one viewpoint was that they ran a really great company. They always treated their employees really well. This is a factory, but they were really close with their factory workers. And I remember them coming over the house. Like we had a really great relationship there. So it was such a great business. But at the same time, they lost that business. And so as I thought about starting companies, it was always very conservative. Like, what's the runway look like? How long can I do this? What's the upside? What am I investing? So every business that I've invested in, I've had, kind of three primary to date. It's always very conservative. I take risks, but with some level, and I don't have like a family member or someone who's providing a cushion necessarily. It's just if I'm going to do something, I want to ensure the best chances of success. And so it can be risky, but I know what I'm getting into. I know what I'm going to be investing in, and I know how long I have to run this before I need to make a call if it's working or not. And so that balance of taking risks, but also being very cautious because of, childhood fears of losing a house, or not having something. It's definitely stayed with me today. But I think a certain level of conservative, I think it's been good. And it's really helped guide me.
Well, it's interesting because you watched your parents lose their business, and your first thought was not, I'm never going to open up a business of my own, right? Like, your first thought wasn't like, I'm going to go and work a company job and have a secure paycheck for the rest of my life and like work, like, I'm going to take the safe route. Because I think you just said you saw your parents go, like, I don't know if it doesn't sound like they regretted the business that they had or they resented it. I mean, maybe they had moments, obviously, where they were like pretty frustrated, but they went and they found new careers. They went back to school, which is probably something that encouraged your curiosity, even though you were already in college. And they did the next step. So you also knew, like, if something fails, it doesn't mean that I'm a failure. It means like the business failed. And it failed, as you said, because spandex is being made not in the United States anymore. And that that is just a fascinating, it shows that it really shows how much we influence our kids with how we handle situations, which leads me to my question, because now your kids are multiple generations away from your grandmother and that influence that was so important to you. And so, um, that both developed your curiosity and your conservative nature when you're spending money or saving. How do you make it a point, or do you make it a point as you're influencing or attempting, as best we all do, to influence your kids to share some of those values that are clearly really important to you?
It's hard, to really, because they do ask questions. We talk about their aspirations and dreams. And my parents were very encouraging. I don't really think of a time where they didn't offers support. And, that was going to the school that I chose to go to, staying at home while going to school and working, and a degree in cultural anthropology. I don't think they tried to talk me out of that. Working in the music business, very proud of me there, and even going off on my own. My dad was probably the biggest supporter of just the idea of working for yourself and giving it a shot. Um, my mom, yes, but not as much as my dad. Again, being, someone, business did not last and there was a lot of risks, but they're still very supportive. My sister and her art history degree. And, these are kind of like things that you would see would not get the same level of parent support, but they were very supportive. And they knew we would figure it out. And my sister's now, in school administration, and like we all kind of landed somewhere, but without really telling us what to do. And so, my kids are, at those age, why do I have to go to school and, like this? And so you want to encourage them, but also think about the opportunity of being around supportive people or supportive family. And so I do want to encourage growth and curiosity and exploration, but also sharing some of the things that you've learned. And so finding that balance between advice and um, encouragement is difficult. Uh, so you lead by example, and I think that there's a lot of things that they can see just by watching and by learning and by being around. And so it's not always a lesson, right? It's just being around you and trying to do good things. But it stays with me certainly, and I have some props that they always see, which was holiday present one year, that stays with me. The car, that was what I got. And that inspires me to, to work for certain things, to appreciate what I do have. And so they see that, they know, what that's about. But also it stays with us even in by name. My son, his name is Micah, and we used to call my grandmother Mika. So it's a little bit of a play there. So we do take a lot of that with us today as constant reminders of, where we came from and how we live today.
It's so hard to instill in our kids lessons that we learned the hard way, right? And I struggle with this. I mean, I grew up in circumstances that weren't ideal, and we didn't have a lot of money when I was little, and lots of hard work. Lots of hard work went into my childhood, and my kids are having a different experience, and it's hard to know, like you were saying, the line between like, okay, I'm going to push this so that you like recognize the like intense level of privilege you have right now, versus like, I don't want to ruin your childhood. Like, I don't I don't want you to be unhappy or not like enjoy what you have, because again, we worked hard to get it. um but I find it very challenging, so I'm just empathizing with you. It's hard to explain to them something that they aren't tangibly experiencing. um but we do the best we can. We expose them to the world and the way in which it works and all the variations that exist. So we need to take another quick break, I think, Tova, and so we'll do that. And when we come back, I do have a question, and then we'll do our quick responses, I think. So we will be right back after this break, everyone.
Hey there, Pod family. Have you ever wished you could stay in the loop with a little slice of transformation and inspiration delivered straight to your inbox? Well, you're in luck, because now you can. Introducing our fantastic newsletter, your VIP pass to all things exciting and informative. Join our community of growth-minded souls. Get the hottest topics delivered right to your inbox. It's quick, easy, and totally free. Just head over to our website at goboldlyinitiative.com and sign up for our newsletter today. Don't miss out on the next big thing. Stay connected with us. Subscribe now and get ready for some big, bold love.
Okay, so welcome back to the show. Before the break, I was on my soapbox, so I'm going to get back off it. I want to ask you to kind of talk to us about what impact you want to leave on the world. Like, what are your goals in the next 5, 10, 15, whatever, however many, however you think about it, years? And kind of what's the next chapter of your story going to look like? How are you writing that?
I don't know. Working on it a little bit every day. I
Yeah.
think that the what I didn't realize about bookstores or people that work in bookstores or bookstore owners is, I mean, we're also in a very interesting time, politically, now economically, and it, we're a little, I think we have been a little bit insulated here in New Jersey from some of the more severe anti literary, anti book action that's being taken throughout the rest of the country. I think it's caught up, certainly. But I didn't, I think um, being part of a continued access to or free access to literature, to being in a place where we can control open access to information is really important. And I did not realize, you know, this level of importance. Um, we support and promote banned and challenged books in the store, which is great. But I think over the next few years, unfortunately, we may have to take a more active role in not just promoting them here, but also providing access to banned and challenged books to individuals in areas where they're being taken away and removed. I think that as an independent, um, non-governmental organization that's not a library, it's not publicly funded, it's we have an additional responsibility to use our power for as long as we have it to make sure that um, we support free access to literature and ideas. And I think there are some people that don't share, even locally, those ideas. So we um, have protocol at the store, what to do when somebody comes in and expresses a certain opinion that um, is not supportive of free access to information and literature. So there's a lot, and I think that when I think about the future, I think it's going to be to continue to protect, continue to um, support diverse ideas, and you can't do it just by um, seeing what's out there and what comes in. You need to take an active role in curating and buying books that represent different voices and different ideas. And so I think for the next few years, it's going to be a lot of that, and hopefully, um, just general kind of being part of somebody's curious life and interest in reading and hobbies or business through the bookstore, plus the added component of protecting one of our greatest, you know, um, uh, one of the greatest things that makes us human. I mean, this is really a unique aspect of our, life. And so being part of it and protecting it in the future, I think will hopefully have a lasting impact on our customers and the community decades from today.
My question was going to be like do a commercial for independent bookstores, but I think you just did a commercial for independent bookstores.
Yes.
I do just want to highlight because I don't know if it's still sitting on the table right next to your front register area, but there is a book that I would encourage anyone who loves books and anyone who likes books to go to an independent bookstore and purchase called The Secret Life of Booksellers and Librarians. This is what I started listening. I didn't let myself first of all, I wish this book just lasted forever and that I could just listen to it every morning because I started listening to like a chapter a morning before I would listen to political podcasts. I was like, nope, we're going to have a positive story every day to start my day. And I would listen to a story of a bookseller or a librarian or a bookstore owner and just sharing much of what you just said of how important your role is. And I'll be honest, I have not thought about um, how important not just bookstores, but independent bookstores are going to be to fill in those gaps that we see are going to be opened up when there is more limitations put on libraries and other places where people have relied on to get access. I mean, they've already had significant issues, but it's as we all can imagine, is going to get worse.
Yeah, it's a great book. I have it right over here. And it's just, sometimes in the day to day you don't realize things that happen, but I'll talk to our booksellers who are amazing. They are on the floor every single day, or I'll see somebody out and they'll thank me for a recommendation that one of our booksellers made or a conversation that they had, or it feels really special and it's an honor to be part of people's lives in that way. But like you said, Tova, when you limit the places where you can get things, you're limited to what the curators of those stores decide. And if you have one place to buy something, that person who's buying for that place is going to control what you have access to. And so independent bookstores are extremely important in protecting a free access to unlimited information, and to not have that information controlled, or so it's super important for indie bookstores especially.
Yeah, and when we think about kids in particular, but all people, and the lack of, and I don't like this phrasing, but I'm not sure what else to call it, safe spaces to ask questions, to find information, to be curious about, all aspects of life, whatever that might be. And when we start taking that away, and I won't go too far down this rabbit hole, but when we start taking that away from the libraries and most likely big corporate retailers, because we see what's happening in corporate retailers in other areas. When we start taking that way, we put people's lives at risk. And I think that it's not overstating it to say that, books can save lives, that seeing a character in a book who sounds like you, looks like you, thinks like you, acts like you, and is safe and happy and in a place where they are accepted gives people hope. And so to take that away is I don't think exaggerated, is putting people's lives at risk, lives that are already at risk, quite frankly. But, so I appreciate what you're doing. I think it's important to recognize our responsibility as citizens, right? As people in this country, who care about other people. And it's nice to hear you to say that out loud, because not everyone says it out loud. So we appreciate that. Taking a very hard left, I'm going to call it a left because I don't want to say right now. And we're going to ask you some quick response questions and wrap it up, because we don't want to take up all your day, even though I think we could talk to you forever. So quick response questions. We're going to ask you 5 questions. I am not allowed to ask follow-up questions, and you just answer whatever pops into your head, and we'll go from there. So everyone ready? Let's do it. Okay. Number 1. I can already answer this. What is your favorite way to unwind after a long day?
It is reading. It's
As I was reading the question, I was like, oh, well, this is silly.
some engaging, I will follow up. So an engaging mystery, something that just takes you somewhere else, that's like stream worthy in a book.
Okay, we've never had follow-up questions before in the history of this podcast, and I'm breaking it because I want to know recommendations.
Oh,
Okay.
oh no, you've really put him on the spot. He's like,
I know.
Am I allowed
I
to
know.
answer?
Yes,
go for
I've
it, go
broken
for
all
it.
of our rules, but I mean, come on.
Um, there is a book that just came out this week or last week. I think it's called Uprooted. This is on the Appalachian Trail. This is a mystery, 3 different perspectives. Someone searching for the person being, who's lost. Letters from someone kind of outside of that circle. So it's 3 stories building to how this mystery is solved. If you love nature and mystery and a really engaging story, I'm going to give this plug for Uprooted.
Well, clearly we're going to be reading that, because there's like so many things in that we both love. All right. Question number 2. What's one thing on your bucket list that you haven't done yet?
Cross-country travel, by RV, national parks. That's been on the bucket list for a while, with a close second being like Iceland or something like that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Number 3, what is your go-to comfort food?
Uh, Fried chicken cutlets and French fries.
I love it. Number 4, if you could instantly master any skill, what would it be?
Like any sport, I think. Um, Golf, maybe. Uh, no, tennis. Tennis. I can't move very fast, and it seems like it's really fun to play.
Love that too. Okay. And our last question, describe yourself in 3 words.
And go with theme of the show, which is curious. Go with quiet. Say I have always been a little bit on the reserve side. And kind. I think I'll go with all similar sounding words. I think I'll leave it at that.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being on the show, for talking to us, for being open about your life and what you've kind of done to get where you are. I know that our listeners are going to appreciate it and learn from you, and that's our whole goal here on the show. So we really appreciate you taking the time to meet with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to at one point being participating in some
Nice.
way. Love the show, and you guys are really great. So thank you so much for having me on.
What you were
oh,
gonna say?
Oh, I was just going to say, where can people find you? Can you share the, URL for your bookstore? Like all the things. Where can people find you?
Locally, tcbookstore.com. That has all information about our bookstore. If you visit our bookshop.org page from wherever you are around the country, you can support us that way. It's a great way to support independent bookstores through our bookshop.org pages. Look for the Collective Bookstore. And Instagram is the best way to stay on top of everything that we're doing here at the store, events, and it's at Collective Bookstore on Instagram.
Excellent. All right. Well, we are going to share that all in the show notes for you guys. So you can find the collective and you can follow them on Instagram and do all the things that you need to do. And Tova, do you have anything else you want to add?
Nope, that's all. I think we're good. Thank you so much for coming. We're great to have you here.
Yeah. All right, everyone. We will be back next week with another episode talking all about how you can be the author of your own story and what that looks like and feels like and all the good things. So until then, everyone, have a wonderful, wonderful week.
Thanks so much for listening to We Go Boldly podcast. We know you're busy and we love spending time with you.
If you enjoyed this week's episode, let us know. Head to Apple Podcasts right now to rate and review our show. While you're there, be sure to click that subscribe button.
Want more us time? Follow us on all the socials at Go Boldly Together.
Want even more us time? As in all the coaching pizzazz. Find us at goboldlyinitiative.com for all the info.
We will be back with more excitement, research, and deep thoughts next week.
Until then, keep on being the bold, brave, amazing people we know you already are.
The Power Moms Network, empowering moms to lift the world.